The expectation that nurses should be superheroes is real. Nurses are expected to do more and more without adequate supplies, staffing. Is being a nurse killing me? Hi, I'm Rita Batchley, and this is Coffee with the Nurse's Nurse. If you suspect you're suffering from burnout or compassion fatigue, research shows that ACE scores, the higher your ACE score, the more likely you will die earlier. And what is an ACE score? Well, an ACE score is an adverse child experience. But in this episode of the Nurse's Nurse, we'll be talking about adverse caregiver experiences. When you have childhood experiences like one of your parents is an alcoholic, or one of your parents physically, emotionally, or sexually abused you, those add up, cut a person's life expectancy up to 20 years. So if you're looking at this list and you could put down a number, you add it up, and an ACE score of 4 are twice as likely to be smokers and 7 times more likely to become alcoholic. And what does this say about you? An ACE score be related to a caregiver. When you look at these questions, you can apply them. And let's look at number 1, physical abuse. Do you feel like you didn't get a duty-free meal or break? And I know that can happen once in a while, but if it's reoccurring on a daily basis in your job, that means you're not getting proper nutrition or hydrating regularly. If you're being sexually harassed, nobody's to support you to say to stop that at your work. That is also, you could give yourself a 2 on the ACE score for that. Verbal abuse. Sometimes verbal abuse can be very overt, yelling and screaming. And you could have that, like I said, once in a while, you get a patient who is out of control, mentally ill. But if you have this circumstance every day and you don't have a manager or a culture at your hospital that deals with supporting nurses through this or debriefing nurses when there's incidences of abuse, then your ACE score is going up. Physical neglect. Did you feel that you didn't have adequate tools, proper PPE, or the protection equipment that you need? I could remember looking for IV pumps, person to help me lift somebody up or pull them up in bed because you couldn't find the right equipment to help you. And a big one for nurses today is emotional neglect. Now, emotional neglect, you're being told that there's nobody to help you, that everyone's been called, and that there's just not enough nurses. I've seen over and over when a full-time employee had quit their job, one of my coworkers, there's never another opening posted for a full-time employee. So that in itself is like, it's traumatic because that gaslighting effect that, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I just need to suck it up, that I'm just not working hard enough or smart enough. And that it puts the burden back on the nurses. And so this trauma, if you have staff members that are depressed or diagnosed with mental illness and it's ignored, or other patients, you're dealing with patients that are addicted to alcohol or substances, or you witness a loss, a patient death, like that is huge for healthcare workers. And when you're not given support around that, it can really cause a lot of detriment and that cumulative effect of trauma. What does that have to do with nursing and nursing job killing you? We need to use resiliency tools, self-regulation, self-care to undo the stress of PTSD, burnout, compassion fatigue, and moral distress. Like all those things are just weighing really heavy on nurses right now. But we do have a way to interrupt that fight, flight, freeze, where I know in my nurse training, they told us pretty much to suck it up, that you just push it down, just stay real busy. But the suicide rates and the stress out there, the rate that nurses are quitting the profession right now, it's really high. And it doesn't have to be that way. We get stressed and that our body goes into the fight, flight, freeze to protect us. But on a day in, day out, constant threat or perceived threat, our body will wear down and it will cause us to be ill. And that's not what we want. The difference is we could turn it around and change. We can look for support, community services, employee assistance programs, skill building, and opportunities to help us learn how to collaborate and come together, because we can't do this alone. Nurses need each other, and we need more support to get through and build resilient careers and remain in the profession. I know that for me, when I first became a nurse, I would have nightmares to that effect, because I was so scared that I was going to hurt somebody, because it takes a lot of practice and experience to be a confident and skilled caregiver. And I had the empathy and compassion. I want to help. I don't want to do harm, but I just needed more time and mentorship. And if you're feeling like that, yeah, smash that like button or look me up on thenursesnurse.com. And yeah, I'd be happy to mentor other nurses and help with the transition that it takes to go from a stressed out, burned out, secondary traumatized out nurse to a resilient and nurtured nurse, which is what it's all about. Because let's face it, nursing is a difficult job. We could ask, is being a nurse killing me? Or it shouldn't be, do I want to kill myself because I'm a nurse? Because if that's going on, then yeah, you need a lot more than a YouTube video or Facebook to be answering that question. And there's healthcare professionals out there who can help. But I just want to put this out there as an awareness to you and to everybody that this, stress can kill. But if we keep putting it onto other people, places, and things, thinking that it's going to make us better, that's not going to work. It's not sustaining. It has to come from inside. Building up the resiliency tools is an inside job. And I went over that in one of my previous videos of how to survive and thrive in nursing. And it's about becoming a nurtured nurse. And that requires resiliency skills, self-regulation, intentionality, maturity, emotional maturity, professional maturity, connection and support with other nurses, self-care, which is taking the time, journaling, really getting underneath all of the causes and conditions that trigger you into these stressful responses. Because when I became knowledgeable of PTSD. I had no idea how shut down I was. I was thinking I was okay. As long as I stayed busy, I didn't have to feel anything. I could just keep going forward and no one would figure it out, because we had that old school mentality of push it down. And I would look at other nurses and think, well, they don't seem to be having a hard time. Maybe it's me. And I was really brittle in my thinking. And it took the devastating wildfire for me to figure out, how much my body was reacting to the stress. And you don't have to get that bad to get that, to figure this out for yourself. These resiliency tools, compassion, fatigue, counseling are out there and available for nurses. And one thing that I think maybe the pandemic is teaching us is that, healthcare will move on and it'll keep going no matter whether we're there or not. If we don't stop and take care of ourselves, then we don't have anything to give. And if you want to still be part of the solution, you got to take care of yourself. I'm going to go into some of the comments and take a look at whatever people are out there. And Marianne Monaco says hello, and hello, Marianne. It's good to see you. The nurse's nurse, and this has been, is being a nurse killing you? And we've gone over some tips and strategies on how to put resiliency into your practice as a nurse. And I hope that you got some value from this. And if you did, join me again for Coffee with the Nurse's Nurse. You could go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. I've got other videos up there. Or you can go on to Amazon and check out my book, Labor Pains. Teaches nurses how to come together and unionize to gain strength and political power in the workplace. And that's it for this week's version of Coffee with the Nurse's Nurse. Join me again next week at 2, or like I said, go on to YouTube. We'll see you then.